there! Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Tuesday, May 7th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Chris Towers. Today on the show, we have 6 potential buy-high options, big returns to the mound, Walker Buehler and Justin Steele, another complete game, and much more. Let's jump in.
Oh my goodness! It sounded like a shotgun!
Chris, did you hear that call tonight?
That was the Ohtani home run?
Yeah. I should have included the bat crack because it really did sound like
there are, I think, I think Bryce Harper is the most aesthetically pleasing home run hitter in baseball. Just when he gets into one, it just doesn't, nobody looks like that. Ohtani, it doesn't sound the same. Like, it's one of those like old baseball cliches, but like it sounds different when he hits it.
It really, really does. And Ohtani is just in one of those zones right now. On Monday night, 2 for 3 with a sock and 2 shoes. That's a home run and 2 steals. And he has 4 home runs in his past 3 games. He has 4 homers, 4 steals in his past 4 games. He is now up to 11 home runs, 9 steals on the season. I do know that you moved him up into your top 5 in the trade chart, and rightfully so. Utility or not, Ohtani is just looks like it's going to be one of those magical seasons once again. But enough on him. There's not really much to say.
Well, I mean, I do want to add, I saw somebody somebody said something about like, oh, he's having this great season and we should have all seen it coming. And it was like, I think we're underselling it though. He had major elbow surgery last offseason. Bryce Harper was screwed up for months. It was a different surgery, but still what he's doing is it's absolutely bonkers. He's ridiculous.
Yeah, and we were talking beforehand. I saw him in spring training. I think his first couple of games, he popped a few home runs, and I was ready to move Ohtani into like the middle of the first round, and then all that stuff happened with his translator. And look, admittedly, there was a little bit of doubt, a sliver of doubt in the back of my mind. So that's on me. For anyone else who drafted Ohtani where you did, you should just be thankful because he looks amazing once again. Chris, let's get into your player of the night. Who is it?
Jonny DeLuca. It's funny. All of the outfielders that we've gotten excited for, top prospects getting the call up, and Jonny DeLuca, I guess because he didn't get called up, it didn't have quite and look, he wasn't a top 100 prospect or anything, but like there was really almost no discussion of Jonny DeLuca when he got activated from the IL. And that was maybe a mistake, because he's off to a really nice start so far. He homered for the first time on Monday. He has started all 4 games since getting activated from the IL, including 1 against the lefty, 3 against righties. He is 5 for 15 with 10 RBI in his first 4 games with just 2 strikeouts. So I think Jonny DeLuca is someone who needs to be rostered in more than, I think it's like 22% of leagues right now. 4%. Yeah.
4%.
Okay. There you go. I was overshooting it. Yeah. 4% is way too low, because that probably means that there's some AL only leagues where Jonny DeLuca is available, and that doesn't make any sense. So go at him in those. I think any 5 outfielder league with 15 teams, he should definitely be rostered. I'd say even the 5 outfielder leagues with 12 teams, Jonny DeLuca probably needs to be rostered, just because outfield's terrible. And so I don't know, 4 games into his career, Jonny DeLuca might be like a top 50 outfielder already, just because there are only like 20 outfielders I feel even decent about. And this is a guy who is not a top 100 prospect. He is an older prospect who has only played 104 games above high A. So there are reasons to be skeptical, but he was a big part of the Tyler Glasnow trade when the Rays sent him over to LA. He's got 26 homers and 18 steals in those 104 games at AA and AAA, 960 OPS across those 2 levels. Like, the quality of contact metrics at AAA weren't great. 96 or 86.4 mile per hour average exit velocity. That's not very good. It's a very sort of Isaac Paredes-esque approach, less extreme. But given pretty good plate discipline, given some athleticism, I do think Jonny DeLuca needs to be rostered way more than he is right now.
I just picked him up in the Scout White Dynasty League last night. That is a 24.
I can't believe he was available. I didn't even see that.
I couldn't believe it either.
Yeah.
I think I won him for $1 or $2. So yeah, I mean, check out some Dynasty Leagues too to see if Jonny DeLuca is available. You mentioned some of the minor league numbers. Just look at 3-year span from 2021 to 2023. Jonny DeLuca, 22 homers, 20 steals, 25 homers, 17 steals, and then 17 home runs, 12 steals. He did that last year in only 73 games in the minors. So there's a little bit of pop. There's some speed here. I think maybe I undersold him, or I didn't even mention that he got activated because I just kind of assumed he would be a short platoon player for Tampa Bay. But the fact that he started all 4 games and 3 of those against right-handed pitching
and
are legitimately giving him every opportunity, at least to start his Rays career.
Josh Lowe was back today.
Yep.
And it was still Jonny DeLuca in the corner outfield spot. So that's I think that's a very good sign.
I think it's bad news for Jose Siri. I think it's bad news for Richie Palacios as well. Not that Palacios has done anything wrong. He's actually hit pretty well, but I think the Rays really do want to see what they have in this kid, Jonny DeLuca. So again, it's not shallower leagues, 12-team leagues, maybe not, but
not points leagues. I don't think
format with 5 outfielders or even dynasty leagues, I would say go out there and check and see if Jonny DeLuca is available. Let's slide over to Mitch Keller, who turned in the second complete game of his career. I believe it was the 7th complete game this season by all starting pitchers. And he was up against the Angels, obviously a very good lineup to stream against right now. He allowed only 5 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts with 7 swinging strikes on 109 pitches. Did allow 9 hard hits in this game. I kind of wish Scott was here because I know Scott would be more excited to talk about Mitch Keller. He was the Mitch Keller optimist coming into the season. We were talking beforehand, Chris. There's not really much in this start. It is a fantastic start. There's no doubt about it. Anytime you get a complete game, but only 7 swinging strikes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is about as pitch to contact-y as a complete game can get. And look, I think one of the reasons why you hang on to Mitch Keller is because when, I don't know, Tristan McKenzie, to name a pitcher who pitched tonight, has a good start. He goes 5 innings, maybe 6. Keller can go 9 innings. Keller can pitch deep into his starts. That was one of the things that Scott really liked about him last year was he was consistently pitching deep into games. And when things are going well, he can give you a lot of volume. And I think especially in a head-to-head points league, that can really matter for Mitch Keller. The problem this season is that the strikeout rate has really regressed. Only 5 in this one. He's down to 21% for the season. Again, good start. It's just when we're trying to project moving forward and you see a 21% strikeout rate and even the quality of contact metrics are actually surprisingly mediocre right now.
The walks are up too this year.
So it just, I think Mitch Keller is in that category of pitcher. I would throw Charlie Morton in there right now, who is getting good results overall, but it's just, I think the best case scenario is these guys are fine. And fine has uses, but it's not what you're aiming for, especially this early in the season when we're still trying to figure out who guys are. We don't have a lot of certainty about who a lot of guys are. And, you see a Reese Olson who was still like 50% rostered yesterday. I'd rather have Reese Olson than Mitch Keller, even if there's probably a lower floor with Reese Olson.
That's a little spicy. All right.
I'd rather have Christian Scott than Mitch Keller, even if the floor is probably lower for Christian Scott. And I think a big part of it is just, I don't know if you're going to miss Mitch Keller if you drop him, and maybe that's not fair, but that's just where I'm at on him.
Yeah, I mean, that was part of my argument against him coming into the season is that it was a really low swinging strike rate last year, despite the strikeout rate. It was a sub 10% swinging strike rate for Mitch Keller. He was just at 9.1% entering the start. It's actually going to go down after this 7 swinging strikes on 109 pitches. So he's probably someone who profiles better in a head-to-head points league for the reasons you mentioned. Like he's going to give you some innings. but pitching for the Pirates, the wins could be hard to come by as well. Again, it's a great start. I feel kind of bad that we're selling it short.
I know. I hate when this happens.
It kind of just is what it is. Like I think Mitch Keller, for me, I have him at SP 62. I'm not going to feel all that inclined to move him up that much after this start. I think he's probably just going to live in that like 50 to 70 range, at least for me. Obviously, Scott.
I think he's in the same range for me. He's 62 as well for me in Roto. And look, there have been times, I don't know where Scott has him ranked specifically right now, but
40.
There have been times where Scott has said he'd be okay dropping Mitch Keller this season. So I don't want to say like Scott thinks Mitch Keller is an ace or anything. I don't want to misrepresent his position either.
Yeah, I think he mentioned that he had Mitch Keller as one of his fallers in the rankings last week. So, I don't think he's going to fall anymore after this start for Scott. But, Mitch Keller, great start for him. Obviously, it's one that he needed.
If you haven't dropped him by now, you're certainly not doing it now.
No, you should not do that. Quick reminder to everyone who is listening to us that you can listen to this podcast and our 5-minute podcast, FBT and 5, on Spotify. If you're watching live on YouTube, scan that QR code that will take you to the Spotify website or Spotify app, where you can listen to all of our podcasts. Let's take our first break. When we return, we'll get into the news and notes right after this.
Women have power. Use it.
You need to send a message. I never should have sent a boy to do a woman's job.
The Chi. New episodes May 10th. Visit ParamountPlus.com/The Chi to get 50% off.
Welcome back in. Let's talk news and notes. Christian Yelich did some hitting on the field Monday, the first time since he went on the IL with a lower back strain. Cody Bellinger could be activated from the IL at some point during the team's current series against the Padres. My guess is Pete Crow Armstrong will either be relegated to the bench or maybe sent back down. He hasn't played poorly. He's been fine, but obviously it's Cody Bellinger. Freddie Peralta dropped his appeal of a 5-game suspension and began serving the ban on Monday. My guess is he'll still start this weekend, either on Saturday or Sunday. George Kirby has been cleared to start Wednesday against the Twins. He left his previous start with right knee soreness. Blake Snell will throw a 3-inning live batting practice on Tuesday. He's on the IL with an adductor strain. Jesus Luzardo struck out 6 over 5 2/3 scoreless innings in a rehab start at Single A on Sunday.
Velocity was fine there. He averaged right around like 95, 96 with his fastball. So that's a good sign.
The Rays activated Josh Lowe, as you mentioned, and they optioned Curtis Mead back to AAA. Lowe hit 3rd in the lineup Monday and finished 2 for 5 with a double. The Guardians expect Steven Kwan to miss approximately 4 weeks after placing him on the IL with a left hamstring strain. I think they're going to give Kyle Manzardo every opportunity to be the team's DH. He did make his debut on Monday. Not so good. 0 for 3 with 3 strikeouts for Kyle Manzardo.
In fairness, like Jack Flaherty's just a really tough pitcher to pitch to face right now.
Yeah, I think he's up to like a 12K per 9, something ridiculous like that. Nolan Jones did throwing and running drills on Saturday. The hope is that he'll be able to return by mid-May. TJ Friedl could be activated as soon as Tuesday. He's missed the start of the season with a fractured right wrist. TJ Friedl is 54% rostered. Do you think TJ Friedl, with as bad as outfield has been, is a must roster, Chris, even in, let's say, 3 outfielder leagues?
It's hard to justify, I think, in a points league, but any non-points league, I think TJ Friedl should be rostered. Yeah.
All right. Francisco Alvarez had the stitches from his surgically repaired left thumb removed on Monday. If all goes well, he should be back around the All-Star break. Brian Wu could be activated this weekend to face the A's. He's 77% rostered and absolutely someone you should be trying to add if he's available in a shallower format. Braxton Garrett struck out 13 over 5 2/3 scoreless in his rehab start Monday in the Florida Complex League. That is the lowest level of minor league competition, so I felt like I should point that out. But Braxton Garrett will likely be activated to start Saturday or Sunday against the Phillies. Taj Bradley has joined the Rays in Tampa and is likely to make his season debut later this week.
How do you rank those 3?
I was going to ask you that question.
Okay, well, I guess that's your job, so I guess I should answer it. I would go Wu, Bradley, and Garrett. Garrett probably has a higher floor than Bradley, but I think we know what the ceiling is for Braxton Garrett, and unless he's playing against the Florida Complex League, strikeouts are not going to be a big part of his game. You're hoping for a high 3s ERA and useful counting stats the rest of the way, where Bradley, the floor is he's not part of the rotation. He gets sent back down. But the stuff is really good. He's looked really good on his rehab assignment so far. So I remain pretty optimistic about him, but he would be behind Brian Wu, who, in fairness, probably has a lower floor, even just because he's dealt with an elbow injury this season, whereas Taj Bradley's was a pectoral injury. So you figure there's less risk there, but I do think Wu, with that really, really good fastball, does have a higher ceiling.
I would rank it Wu, Garrett, and Taj Bradley, but if you were making the argument for just upside, then I totally get wanting to take Bradley over Garrett. I really like what we saw from Garrett last year. I know he's kind of like a jack of all trades type pitcher. I think he's actually kind of a lot like Mitch Keller in that ways.
Sure, yeah.
Less than a strikeout per inning. I think the control is a little bit better. Not going to get many wins on the Marlins.
Doesn't pitch deep into games like Mitch Keller does. That's the biggest issue for Braxton Garrett.
Yep. Jorge Soler has missed 2 straight with shoulder discomfort, which comes at an awful time because the Giants get 7 games this week, including 3 in Coors Field. So unfortunately, in the leagues where I have Jorge Soler, I took him out of the lineup just because I think there's a chance he could land on the IL. And they haven't said anything like that, but there is a chance. According to Buster Only, Tanner Scott could be on the move next with the Marlins. Josh Bell could also interest some teams. He was a name that was mentioned. Chris, if Tanner Scott is traded, who do you think would step in for saves? It might not matter, honestly, but
if Tanner Scott was traded today, I think Anthony Maldonado would probably be the most likely. They've seemed to really like him. They called him up and immediately threw him in high leverage situations.
Yep.
If Tanner Scott gets traded by July, I think there's a decent chance it's AJ Puck, but obviously he has to get healthy and then pitch.
Yep. Yeah, no, I think that's a good call out. AJ Puck, I believe, made his second relief appearance either yesterday or over the weekend. And he's working as a reliever again. So that definitely could. I was going to throw Woo Suk Go's name in there just because.
Sure. He was someone we thought would be the closer for the Padres before, spring went really poorly for him.
Yeah. So 3 potential options, but I do agree. I think if it happens very soon, it could be Anthony Maldonado next up for the Marlins. Paul Skeens' next start will come at AAA later this week. His start on Sunday wasn't as dominant. He allowed 2 earned runs over 4 1/3 innings, and it was also Skeens' first time working on regular rest. So again, my prediction has now been delayed 2 starts. I said, last week that I thought his next start would be with the Pirates. Obviously, that didn't happen. And it's a good call by you because I remember you expressed some skepticism that he needs to pitch on regular rest before they actually call him up. So.
I will believe that it is imminent when he makes it to 90 pitches. I just have a hard time seeing with the way they're handling him that they're going to call him up without having gotten to 90 pitches. I think his most pitches this season was 75. So that could happen in his next start, right? And then he could be on the way. I feel less certain that he's imminent than a lot of people in the fantasy industry, which I'm with you. I think it's dumb. I hate what the Pirates are doing with Paul Skeens. I think I don't even know if it's short-sighted because I don't see how you can look at all these young pitchers getting hurt and say, aha, we figured it out how to keep Paul Skeens healthy. We just have him not throw a lot of pitches. It doesn't work. Nothing works. So just get them in the majors, whatever.
Yeah, he's wasting his bullets down in the minors right now, and he throws 100 miles per hour. So if we're thinking about it realistically, how many bullets does Paul Skeens have over the next decade? I hope it's a ton, but it's just the track record, I guess, for pitchers that throw that hard. It hasn't been great, at least not recently. And the last and perhaps the most pivotal piece of news is that this will be Chris's last FBT podcast for at least a few weeks. He's off to travel.
Oh, I don't know. Just a few weeks. I'm coming back.
At least a few weeks.
I hope
hopefully you come back.
If it's more than a few weeks, then something bad happens. So I am planning to return in 13 or 14 days. We'll see how I feel.
Maybe
when
you
I get
fall
back.
in love with Europe, Chris.
It's possible.
Come back. Yeah,
it's possible. But I'll be gone for a couple weeks. I'm forcing Scott to do extra work by doing the newsletter for me. Him and Dan Schneider will be taking it on. And, I don't love taking 2 weeks off in May, but that's when the plans happened. So we'll go.
Yeah. Hey, man, enjoy yourself. Have a good time. Let's talk about two big returns here on Monday. Walker Buehler made his first start with the Dodgers since June 10th of 2022, and he looked a little bit rusty going up against the Miami Marlins. I think that was expected. 4 innings, 6 hits allowed, 3 runs, 0 walks, 4 strikeouts, had 8 swinging strikes on 77 pitches. That's a 10.4% swinging strike rate. Did a good job limiting hard contact. He leaned on his cutter. It was his most used pitch in this start. The velocity was actually solid. He averaged 95.9 miles per hour on that fastball, and it was a lot lower in his minor league rehab assignment. So I thought that was a really good sign. And I think the problem, at least in this one, Chris, none of his secondaries were working. He had just 2 swinging strikes on the curve, the slider, and the changeup combined. It's going to take some time, but overall, mixed results, I think still mostly encouraging. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the velocity especially was actually quite encouraging because the velocity was down a couple miles per hour in that rehab stint, at least when we saw him. So the fact that he was up from the last time he pitched in the majors, I think is a good sign. It doesn't mean Walker Buehler is definitely going to be an ace moving forward, but my expectation has been I've kept him in like the 30 to 40 range at starting pitcher, and I think that'll make him a must-start pitcher, but I don't necessarily know I expect him to be an ace, but my expectations aren't any lower after this start, I will say.
Justin Steele also made a return. Was not out nearly as long as Walker Buehler. He missed about a month of the season here, but he was, I would say, solid against the Padres. 4 2/3 shutout innings, 3 hits, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts, only 4 swinging strikes, but did a great job limiting hard contact, as Justin Steele always does. It was pretty much the Justin Steele experience, Chris. It was lots of fastballs. I know people argue that it's a cutter. It's not really a four-seam fastball. I think he kind of changes the shape on the fastball, like depending on counts in different situations.
Oh, yeah.
But overall, I thought it was okay.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Steele is kind of a 2-pitch pitcher, but he's also kind of like a 6-pitch pitcher.
Yeah.
Because like depending on what part of the strike zone and which batter he's going against, he'll throw his fastball and his slider in very different ways. So, look, I think he made 1 rehab start after missing like a month and then came back. So it shouldn't be terribly surprising that he only threw 4 2/3 innings and 68 pitches. But like Walker Buehler, I see no reason to be lower on him after this start.
Chris, I have one request for you before you leave to go to Europe. I'm going to need you to move Zack Wheeler up to your SP1 because he was awesome again. 7 innings, 4 hits, 1 unearned run, 11 strikeouts was a season high, 19 swinging strikes on 102 pitches. 13 of those came on the fastball. He was ridiculous. It was his 3rd start this season with double-digit strikeouts. He's down to a 1.64 ERA, a .89 whip. The underlying numbers all look fantastic, a 48% ground ball rate. Is there any reason he shouldn't be ranked ahead of Corbin Burnes at this point?
No, I can't point to anything specific except that I had Burnes number 1 and Wheeler number 2 coming into the season. And I may just be pig-headed enough to keep it that way. But yeah, this sure looks like the best version of Zack Wheeler we've ever seen, which is interesting because he's actually throwing less hard than maybe ever. Is 94.5 miles per hour his lowest fastball velocity average?
That sounds like it might be.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever been this low. 2017, he was 94.7. If you remember, Zack Wheeler had a ton of injuries early in his career. So, yeah, he's added that splitter, which we haven't really talked much about this season, but he barely needed it today. But it's been an awesome pitch for him, generating a ton of weak contact. Career high strikeout rate, walk rate, right around where it usually is. The quality of contact's better than it's ever been. Yeah, this sure looks like the best version of Zack Wheeler we've ever seen. So sure, I will move him 1 spot in my rankings ahead of Corbin Burnes, who has looked great, but maybe slightly less dominant.
Yeah, I was going to point out, Corbin Burnes hasn't really done anything wrong. He has a 2.61 ERA and a .92 whip. Strikeout rate is just below a strikeout per inning, so it's
right around where it was last year, I think.
Yeah, it's right around there. The walks have been much better, which obviously has helped Corbin Burnes. But yeah, Zack Wheeler just looks like he's on a new level right now, especially with that the incorporation of that splitter and even with the diminished velocity, that fastball is playing up, and Zack Wheeler has been, in my opinion, the SP1 so far this season.
Mm-hmm.
Buy high or no thanks, guy. And we're going to talk about 6 different players here that are performing well or performing well as of late, and whether or not you should be looking to buy high. Exactly that. Riley Green, Chris, your guy, 1 for 5 with his 9th home run. He had 4 hard hits in this game, 3 over 106 miles per hour. He has 4 home runs in his past 7 games, is batting .266 overall with a .391 on base percentage, 9 home runs, 27 runs, .939 OPS. He entered Monday's action as the 10th best outfielder in head-to-head points leagues. The only thing that I will say about what he's done so far this year is that he's not running. And I don't know that we ever expected him to run all that much, but it would be nice if we can get like 10 to 15 steals out of Riley Green. Even with that, he has been awesome. And I think he's making the case to be ranked as like a top 25 outfielder. I guess where you had him coming into the season, right? So
would you like to know where I have Riley Green ranked right now?
Where do you have him?
I have Riley Green. So you are higher than Scott on Riley Green. I have Riley Green 19 outfield spots ahead of you and 23 spots ahead of Scott. He is my outfielder 14.
Ooh, spicy.
Yeah. I am a believer in Riley Green. My Twitter profile name since the spring has been Chris Towers is the Riley Green Preservation Society. Shouts to my fellow Kinks heads out there. And yeah, he's awesome. He's one of those guys where you look at the strikeout rate and you think he probably can't hit for batting average, but the quality of contact is so consistently awesome for Riley Green that I think he probably can keep hitting like 270. It's probably not going to be 290 like it was last year. The quality of contact hasn't been quite that good. The XBA is a little lower, but he is just crushing the ball right now. Expected WOBA on contact is 484. Last year it was 477. Expected WOBA overall, 394 because the plate discipline's been so much better. I think there are probably going to be stretches. And Riley Green might be just like the new left-handed version of Nick Castellanos, where the plate discipline will probably never be great. There's probably enough swing and miss in his game, especially that there might be stretches where he looks kind of lost. But I think at the end of the day, Riley Green is going to be a very good power hitter, a very good run producer. I think given his lineup spot, maybe it tilts more towards runs than RBI right now. But overall, yeah, I'm buying Riley Green. And the question is, when are you guys going to catch up?
I'm looking at it now, and yeah, there's a real argument for him to be top 20. So I'm going to update the rankings on Wednesday like I always do. And, you know, my
part of it is just like, yeah.
14 through 18 for me is Steer, Reynolds, Teoscar Hernandez, and Carter, Jazz Chisholm. Like, Riley Green absolutely should be in there.
Yes, absolutely. Like, and then you've got like Yelich, who's injured, but hopefully will be back soon. Luis Robert, injured, hopefully will be back soon. The disappointing rookies. So like, it's partially a function of just, I just don't like outfield that much. And I really like Riley Green, so I might as well throw him up there. But I do really, really like Riley Green as well.
Let's talk about Cole Reagans, someone who obviously you and Scott were very excited about coming into the season. I never really expressed all that much optimism, but maybe I should have, because he has looked really good. Turned in another quality start, 6 innings, 2 runs, 8 strikeouts to 2 walks, 19 swinging strikes on 95 pitches. That changeup continues to be awesome for Cole Reagans. And he is now down to a 3.38 ERA. The whip is a little bit high. He does walk a good amount of batters, and his BABIP is a little bit higher than you'd like it to be as well. But it's a 236 FIP. It's a 303 xFIP. And Chris, I am making the case that he should be ranked inside the top 12 and treated as an SP1. And if someone in your league is not valuing him that way, then you should look to buy high.
Yeah, I've got him at 14. So the guys who are right ahead of him are Logan Gilbert and Aaron Nola, who have been, I mean, Gilbert's been one of the best pitchers in baseball, and Nola has had the bounce back season we were hoping for the most part. So I don't know how inclined I am to move him ahead of those guys, but that's mostly just because of lingering questions about whether he can hold up as a full-time starter for a full season, something he has never really done. In terms of production, I think Cole Reagans is an ace. Yeah. I don't really have much skepticism. It's one bad start this season. He had that one start where he gave up 7 earned runs in 1 2/3 innings. He hasn't given up more than 3 earned runs in any of his other starts.
The one that I'm going to wrestle with this week is Gausman. Do I move him ahead of Gausman? Because, Gausman, he's been all right, but there are questions, like the velocity hasn't been there for him, and obviously he had the shoulder coming into the season. So I think there are injury concerns with both of those guys. And right now, I like what I'm seeing from Cole Reagans more than what I've seen from Kevin Gausman. So I think I will make that swap. I think I will move Reagans ahead of Gausman later this week.
Pew pew.
And let's move on to Brandon Nimmo, who went 2 for 5 with his 4th home run. He had 3 hard hits in this game, one of which 110.9 exit velocity. The other 111.1. Crushing the ball lately is Brandon Nimmo. His last 11 games, he's batting .317 with 2 home runs, a 91.8 average exit velocity, and the overall numbers are still low enough. A .228 batting average, a .770 OPS, where I think you could take advantage and buy high on Brandon Nimmo. Chris, what do you think about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of those guys who's just kind of consistently gotten better as his career has gone on. Especially when it comes to the quality of contact that he's making. Last season, he had career high hard hit rate, career high expected WOBA on contact, all those things. And he's improved on those so far this season. So on the one hand, I'm inclined to just say he's 31. We don't really need to buy into it. We know who Brandon Nimmo is. On the other hand, it's possible that he's taking another step forward. I think the likelier outcome is just he's had a good month in terms of hitting the ball hard, and he'll probably regress, but
he hit the ball really hard last year too.
Yeah, no, it was the best quality of contact of his career. So I think you can make the case that like he's outfielder 40 for me in Roto, but I look at it and like him versus Colton Cowser the rest of the season. Okay, Colton Cowser probably has more upside, but he's been pretty bad for a couple of weeks now. Brandon Nimmo versus Anthony Santander. Like Santander is going to hit for better power. He's in that great lineup. So I think that, but like, so maybe I move him up to 32, but then right ahead of that is Cody Bellinger and Nolan Jones on the IL. And I don't know exactly how I feel about those guys. So yeah, I think Nimmo can move up pretty quickly.
The overall batting average is .228 for Nimmo. The expected batting average entering Monday was .292. So I think there are some better days coming for Brandon Nimmo. Obviously just had a great game on Monday as well. So if anyone in your league is just not valuing him as like a top 40 or top 36 outfielder, basically a third outfielder, then I would be looking to buy on Brandon Nimmo. Jack Flaherty, another one, turned in another quality start. He was at the Guardians, 6 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts to 1 walk. He had 15 more swinging strikes in this one, and he threw more fastballs and changeups in this start. His fastball velocity was actually up to 94 miles per hour. He hadn't averaged that in a season on his fastball since 2020, which obviously was a shortened season. But he's down to a 3.86 ERA, a 105 WHIP. And the reason I mentioned him here, Chris, is as recently as last week, he was still on waiver wires. I think so many people have been burned by Jack Flaherty in the past that they might not be valuing him the way that they should based on his K to walk ratio and his super high swinging strike rate this year. I think he ranks top 5 in both K minus walk rate and Sierra on the season. So yeah. I'm not saying he's going to keep that up, but when it's all said and done, I mean, if he continues to pitch like this, he might be like an SP2 by season's end. So I'm not saying I value him like that, but I think there's still room to buy before he gets to that level.
Yeah, he entered today's start number 1 in K minus walk ratio for the season. K minus walk rate. Just ahead of Jared Jones. And I don't know. He was like 1/10 of a percentage point ahead. So it might, I don't know if he quite kept that lead, but number 2 to Jared Jones right now is not a bad place to be. The slider and knuckle curve have been outstanding for Jack Flaherty this season. The whiff rate on the knuckle curve, I believe, coming in was like 50%. Slider was above 40% as well. And all of a sudden, his fastball looks really good. He had 9 swinging strikes with the fastball on 22 swings today. That's going to put the fastball swinging strike rate right around 30%. That's an elite mark for a 4-seam fastball. The velocity, like you mentioned, up to 94.4 miles per hour today. Not quite at the Cardinals revenge game mark that he was at last week, where I think he sat 95, but he hit 97.6. This is a version of Jack Flaherty that we really haven't seen since 2021 at least, and possibly 2019. His velocity's up higher than it's been since 2019. So yeah, I was surprised to look at the rankings just now and see that Scott's actually a little bit lower than you and I on Flaherty, at least in the Roto rankings. He's got him 40. You've got him 34. I've got him 35. I think that's the right range for Flaherty. And it's mostly just, can he keep this fastball velocity up and keep being as effective with that pitch as he has been? If he does, I could see him being a top 24 starting pitcher. Yeah.
Yeah. And the walks. Can he keep the control in check? Because that has been an issue, a very big issue for Jack Flaherty in years past. But when the Tigers signed him, they said that they knew what they needed to do to fix him. And so far they have completely backed that up. So yes, if people are not buying in on Jack Flaherty, I think you should be. Let's take our final break. When we return, I've got 2 other names you might want to buy high on. We'll do that right after this.
Golf's brightest stars head to the Bluegrass State for the second major of the season, the PGA Championship, May 18th and 19th on CBS.
Christopher Morel is in one of those zones right now. 1 for 4 with his 8th home run on Monday. 3 hard hits in this game, all over 105 exit velocity. He has 4 homers in his past 5 games. He has 5 home runs in his past 8 games. And as we mentioned, I believe last week, the plate discipline is much improved for Christopher Morel. He's down to a 21% strikeout rate. Last year, that was 31%. The expected numbers all say that Christopher Morel has been unlucky so far. This is very much so like Brendan Nimmo, Chris, where I do like Morel more in Roto. I like Brendan Nimmo more in points, but they're both going to be in that 30 to 40 outfielder range, and the numbers have not caught up to what the expected numbers say they should be.
Yeah, Morel's a player that I struggle with because I feel like I should like him more than I do. And more often than not, I think he ends up being just a collection of interesting tools rather than a fully formed player. And he gets on these hot streaks and looks really, really good, and then gets in these cold streaks and looks really, really bad. We were talking about one of those not too long ago. But yeah, he's a top 40 outfielder for me. I think he's probably a must-start player in any Roto league. I'm not quite ready to buy the improved plate discipline to say that he's a points league guy as well, but given third and outfield eligibility, you've probably got a spot for Christopher Morel in your lineup somewhere.
Yes, absolutely. Last name here is Maikel Garcia, who went through a funk for quite some time, but he has bounced back nicely. He went 1 for 2 with 2 walks and 2 RBI here. And over his last 16 games, Maikel Garcia is batting .323 with 1 homer, 4 steals, 91.9 average exit velocity, hitting lots of line drives. And just another one where the overall numbers just haven't caught up yet to where they should be. He's batting .236 overall, a .671 OPS. He started red hot, he got ice cold, and now he's picking things back up. But based on how much contact he makes, how hard he hits the ball, the expected batting average is .269 for Maikel Garcia. I don't know that he's going to be a stud or anything, Chris, but if you play in a Roto league where you have a corner infield spot or just deeper lineup spots, I think he is someone that could be a fixture, and people might not value him like that yet.
Yeah, I think this is another one that it's probably just for Roto leagues. I think points leagues, although, the plate discipline's not so bad that I can't see him being useful, but he's a better Roto league player for sure. And right now he's on like a close to 20 homer, 40 steal pace
Yeah.
right now. Quality of contact is better than it was last season, even if I don't think it's necessarily suggesting that he's going to be a star. And he did underperform his expected stats last season in a way that, while is not proof that he will continue to do it, it does raise the question of whether that's going to be a problem for him in some way. So, we'll see. But yeah, on the whole, I think you have to be very pleased with what Maikel Garcia has done. And I think the production will be better moving forward than it has been.
Let's slide over to the waiver wire pitchers from Monday's action, and 4 names that pitched very well. I'm not sure how much I'm buying it with any of them, but Sean Manaea turned in a quality start at the Cardinals. 6 innings, 3 runs, 1 walk to 1 strikeout, just 4 swinging strikes, and he changed his pitch mix drastically in this start. He ditched his 4-seam fastball, which he was throwing 20% of the time, and he led with his sinker, 48% usage, and that's part of the reason why he did not get many swinging strikes in this outing. Kyle Gibson was solid, 6 innings, 3 runs, 2 of those were earned, 4 strikeouts with 12 swinging strikes. He does have a swinging strike rate of at least 13% in 3 straight starts. That is Kyle Gibson. Simeon Woods Richardson was awesome against the Mariners. 6 shutout innings, 1 hit, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts with 10 swinging strikes in that one. And Andrew Heaney turned in a strong start at the Oakland A's. It was 6 innings, 2 runs. 1 of those was earned. 5 strikeouts with 15 swinging strikes on 97 pitches. And his velocity was up about a tick on all of his pitches. And obviously facing the Oakland A's helps quite a bit. But Chris, do you have any interest in Heaney, Simeon Woods Richardson, Kyle Gibson, and Sean Manaea?
Woods Richardson is the only one that I think I have any interest in as more than a streamer. Any of these guys can have good starts against the right matchups. And I think in all of these cases, they kind of had the right matchups. Woods Richardson was at least a prospect of some renown. He was a top 100 guy before he got to the high minors. Really kind of fell apart once he got to AA and AAA, and the ratios were much worse. But, maybe it's a late bloomer kind of thing. I don't really see too much in the profile to get excited about. It just kind of seems like a handful of decent pitches, but nothing that's really better than average-ish. So my expectations are not particularly high for Woods Richardson, but I would rather have him than any of the other guys mentioned.
Yeah, I think the slider could actually be a plus pitch for Woods Richardson, but entering this start, his fastball and changeup had an expected WOBA over 460, which is just insane. So I don't know that he can survive with just having a really good slider if those other 2 pitches regress moving forward. But Simeon Woods Richardson is 23% rostered. The most added starting pitchers on CBS, no surprise, John Means, Christian Scott. Those guys should be at the top. There's no doubt. Then the next 3 on the list are Cole Irvin, Colin Ray, Andrew Heaney, likely because of 2 starts this week. I think if I'm just speculating, I would rather have Woods Richardson over any of those guys moving forward. Irvin,
yeah, those last 3 that you mentioned, yeah.
But not Means and Scott, obviously.
Not Means and Scott, no. Those are a different class of quality.
Yep. 2 names in deeper leagues. Do either of these guys matter? Alex Wood turned in a quality start against the Rangers, 6 shutout innings with 3 strikeouts in that one. He still has a 5.30 ERA after this start. And Bryce Wilson has quietly pitched well for the Brewers. Shout out to you. I know you started him in the Scott White Dynasty League. He was at the Royals, 6 shutout, 1 hit, 3 walks, 6 strikeouts with 11 swinging strikes. I mean, this is very deep league stuff, but anything to see here with Bryce Wilson and Alex Wood?
I think Bryce Wilson's kind of interesting in a points league context because he is RP eligible, and he's actually making the switch from the bullpen to the rotation right now. He hasn't really ever succeeded as a member of the rotation prior to his last couple of starts, and there's not a ton in his profile that suggests that he's going to be much more than even a league average pitcher. But a league average pitcher in a points league who has RP eligibility, that can be a useful player. He had 2 starts this week. That was why I picked him up and started him in the Dynasty League, and I'll keep him around at least until, Cody Bradford comes off the IL and I have to make that choice.
Let's slide over to the waiver wire hitters, and these are mostly deep league options. Zach Neto has been coming around recently, 1 for 3 with his third home run, and over his last 13 games, he's batting .356 with all 3 of his home runs, 91.2 average exit velocity for a smaller middle infield type guy. He's packs a bit of a punch, and he's 22% rostered. We lost Trey Turner over the weekend. You might be looking for a shortstop replacement. That could be Zach Neto. Tommy Pham went 1 for 4 with his second home run. He added 2 RBI, and through 10 games, he's batting .282 with the 2 home runs, 8 runs scored. We mentioned Jonny DeLuca earlier. Harold Ramirez went 4 for 4 with a double, 3 runs, and his 4th stolen base of the season. He doesn't play every day. He's only started 5 of the past 9 games for the Tampa Bay Rays. And Abraham Toro has multiple hits in 5 of his past 6 games. He went 3 for 4 with a double in this one. Again, it's mostly deep league stuff, but do you have any confidence in any of these names? Neto, Pham, we spoke about DeLuca, but also Harold Ramirez and Abraham Toro.
So Toro has been decent enough for long enough this season that I do think we probably need to take him seriously. As a 15-team corner outfielder type, like I dropped him in an AL only league, and I really regret that right now. I wish I still had him around. I started him in the Scott White Dynasty League. Those are my 2 deepest leagues. So that tells you the kind of context, but I think he's useful in deeper leagues. And then Neto, I think there's like, this may be damning with faint praise here, but like 2023 Anthony Volpe potential. Like he could get, I think 2020 is probably close to the ceiling on both regards.
Yeah.
But I think he could get there. It's just bad lineup spot, bad lineup.
Yeah.
So neither of those things working for him. Probably not going to be a big source of batting average, but I like him in a 15-team roto context.
Zach Neto, 70th percentile sprint speed. So yeah, 20 steals.
And he's got like 10 steals in his career in like around 90 games, if I'm remembering correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like what I've seen. I think Zach Neto could even be useful in a 12-team roto league with a middle infield spot. It's just, we lost Trey Turner, and middle infield has been a little bit sketchy there in the back end. So I could see Zach Neto mattering. Who would you rather have in a 5 outfielder league, Chris? Tommy Pham or Jonny DeLuca?
I think it probably would be DeLuca, but it's probably one of those. Pham has the higher floor, but I kind of want to see where DeLuca goes.
Yeah, Pham's going to play. I mean, he's on a bad team.
Yeah.
They obviously are going to play him because they don't really have many other options. And
he could go 2022.
Yeah, there is a chance that he's probably going to get flipped some at the deadline and probably make his way into a better lineup. So that would be good news for Tommy Pham. I agree. I think he's the higher floor option. If you need someone absolutely to play right now and plug in your lineup, I think I would go with Pham, but DeLuca might have more upside just because he's the mystery box, and we've seen Tommy Pham play for a very long time now at this point. Let's get into some of the leftovers and the pitching performances that stand out. Luis Castillo had a quality start at the Twins, 6 2/3 innings, 3 runs, 7 strikeouts with 14 swinging strikes in that one. Yu Darvish pitched well at the Cubs. It was 5 shutout innings, 3 hits, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts with 15 swinging strikes in 2 starts since returning from the IL. Yu Darvish has emphasized his slider and has made it his most used pitch in both outings. And the fact that he had 15 swinging strikes in this start, I thought was very encouraging because he had just a 10% swinging strike rate entering this start. Tristan McKenzie has allowed 2 earned runs or fewer in 4 straight. He was up against the Tigers, 5 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts, only had 9 swinging strikes. The problem, he's still walking so many batters. 3 walks in this one, and he's had 3+ walks in 4 of 7 starts. In Tristan McKenzie's breakout 2022, he averaged 2.1 walks per 9. He's up at 5.6 right now. So unless he gets that done, I don't think he's going to matter in more than like a streamer sense. That is Tristan McKenzie. Anything else you want to add on him, Darvish, and Luis Castillo?
Castillo, we're done talking about him. He's an ace. We said that last time around. Darvish, it's weird that he didn't pitch deeper into this game. He threw 83 pitches before getting pulled. Given his arsenal and his age, you would think he's a guy who doesn't need to be shielded the third time through the order and should be able to go deeper. I wrote it off after he only went 5 innings in his last start because it was his first one back from the IL, but it's a little bit concerning that they're treating him this way, and I'd like to see him going deeper. And then I think the biggest thing for McKenzie is just he's given us reason not to drop him over the past 4 starts. 25 strikeouts over 21 innings, 2.57 ERA. He has yet to have a start this season. Let me make sure I have this stat correct. He's yet to have a start this season with more than 5 innings and more than a strikeout per inning. I think he's only gone more than 5 innings once. And so he's just been super inefficient. I don't really trust his arsenal. I think McKenzie's okay. There's high weekly strikeout potential with him, but he's definitely not a must start, and I'm not even sure he's a must roster player.
It's interesting that Yu Darvish hasn't thrown more than 92 pitches in a single start this season.
Yeah.
So I think in this one, maybe it's just he's still working back from the IL. His last start, he had 70. All right, this one he builds up to, 83 pitches. So next time out, he's probably up to like 90, 95. But there is a chance that they're just kind of babying Darvish. I dealt with something with his elbow last year, right?
I think it was bone spurs in his elbow, if I remember correctly.
And he didn't get it cleaned up in the offseason.
Yeah.
So might be part of the calculation here with you.
Yeah, he had a stress reaction in his elbow last year that I think there was then bone spurs as well.
Some hitting leftovers. We've got 3 Phillies who did some interesting things here on Monday.
All right,
Go ahead.
The Phillies hitters are great.
Okay.
The Giants handling of Mason Black today was baffling. This guy hadn't thrown more than 75 pitches, I believe, in any of his minor league starts. His career high in pitches is 86, and they left him in to face the Phillies third time through the order, and he threw 84 pitches. I just, it's kind of a more extreme version of the Paul Skeens thing where it's just like, I don't understand what this organization is doing as far as the development of this specific player. And maybe there was something in his stint in the minors that they had to limit his pitches. I don't know. But having him throw 10 more pitches than he had thrown in any start this season again in his major league debut against a really good team, it was so baffling to watch as it happened. I couldn't believe that they were doing it. And predictably, I believe it ended with, or at least peaked with, Bryce Harper hitting a home run off of him in the third time he's faced him. So, yeah. And Nick Castellanos ended his day with a double, I believe. It was dumb. I really hated watching that. They set this kid up to fail.
And as somebody who started Tyler Black in NL Labor this week, I was watching it and I was like, all right, 4 innings, 1 run. I'm pretty sure he's done. And boom, he comes out and everything just spirals out of control in the 5th inning. So overall, watching him, I didn't think the stuff was that impressive. Yeah,
I didn't see anything to be too impressed with. It was mostly just they didn't give him a chance to succeed. And I really hate it. His season high in pitches was 71 before this one, by the way.
Yeah. And then he goes, hey, just go out and throw, 85 pitches against the Phillies. One of the best lineups in baseball. Not great. Some of those leftovers, by the way, Kyle Schwarber went 2 for 4 with his 9th home run. Bryce Harper, 2 for 4 with his 8th homer. He's now homered in back-to-back games. Nick Castellanos, 2 for 2 with a double and 2 walks over his last 16 games. He's batting .250 with 2 home runs, 13 runs, and a stolen base. So slowly coming around. Jose Ramirez went 1 for 4 with his 7th home run. Is batting .230 early on in the season. The only things I really noticed, the quality of contact is down. The expected numbers are not buying anything from Jose Ramirez right now, but
they never. He's one of the bigger overperformers over the last 5 years. So I'm not worried at all about Jose Ramirez.
And a sign of life from Corey Seager, who went 1 for 4 with his 3rd home run. It was a 3-run shot. He has a .229 batting average and a .614 OPS. The quality of contact is actually way down for Corey Seager as well. The barrel rate is down. The line drives are down. Expected numbers don't look good. I'm not going to say that I'm overly concerned, but the fact that he did have the sports hernia surgery, it could at least explain part of why he is off to a slow start.
I think it could explain why he's off to a slow start. And look, maybe he's just never right all season. But Corey Seager has a long enough track record that as long as he's healthy, I expect him to be a superstar.
All right. And let's wrap up with some bullpen updates for the Guardians. Emmanuel Clase struck out 1 for his 11th save. He is now He is now tied for the league lead. For the Royals, James MacArthur was unavailable. Chris Stratton got the 9th with a 1-run lead. He walked 2, but did pick up his 2nd save. For the Twins, I hope this is not becoming a trend because Yohan Duran entered in the 8th inning with a 2-run lead, facing 9-1-2 in the Mariners lineup. Second in the Mariners lineup is Julio Rodriguez, so I get why they wanted him to face that part of the lineup. Duran struck out 2, and then lefty Caleb Thielbar got the 9th. He struck out 2 for his 3rd save. That's 2 games in a row now that Duran has worked the 8th inning.
And that is not something that happened last year. There was no point last year where he worked the 8th inning in consecutive games.
Interesting. This is more like how he was used 2 years ago.
Yeah, and I think on the broadcast they said something about like Brock Stewart not being available gives them a one fewer fireman, so they want to use Yohan Duran more as a high leverage stopper than a traditional closer. But I think
it's not great for fantasy, though.
It's not great, but I think the one thing you have to keep in mind is 1, Brock Stewart presumably will be back at some point, and 2, he got a save in each of his first 2 appearances of the season. And so while it might be the case that you can't count on Yohan Duran to get 100% of the Twins saves moving forward or 90% or whatever you would expect normally, I still expect the next one to be Yohan Duran because the highest leverage situation is often the 9th inning of a 3-run or less game. So I do think there will be still the majority of save opportunities moving forward will be Yohan Duran's, even if it's not, okay, maybe he doesn't have 40 save upside. I still think 25 to 30.
I was going to say over under rest of season, 20 saves.
Yeah, I would take the over still.
All right. For the Mets, Edwin Diaz struck out 1 for his 5th save. For the Padres, Robert Suarez got the final 5 outs, 3 via the strikeout. For his 11th save, he is now also tied for the league lead. I think there might be 5 or 6 different relievers that have 11 saves already. So that'll be an interesting race by the end of the season to see who leads the league in saves. For the Texas Rangers, Kirby Yates got the 9th with a 2-run lead. He walked 1, but picked up his 6th save, and he has yet to allow an earned run. He has a .49 whip, and he has over a strikeout per inning. Kirby Yates has been fantastic for that team. For the Dodgers, Blake Trinan got the 8th inning with a 3-run lead, facing 2, 3, and 4 in the Marlins lineup. He struck out 1, and then it was Alex Vesia who got the 9th. 2 lefties, 2 up in the 9th, and he converted the save in that one. Daniel Hudson last pitched on Friday, so I thought he would have been available, but as Scott said yesterday, Chris, it might just kind of be whoever Dave Roberts feels like, or whatever the matchups say, whoever the matchups say should be out there, you know?
Yeah, I think this one specifically was a matchups thing with 2 lefties coming up in the 9th inning, but yeah, that might just be the case moving forward, where like Daniel Hudson is the most likely guy, but it might be a situation where he gets a plurality of the save opportunities instead of a majority.
All right, let's get into to stream or not to stream. And for Tuesday, who did we say yesterday? I think it was Jose
Budo.
You were going to call.
Yeah, I'm struggling with that one still. It's one of those ones where I've read it and then I can't get past how my brain reads it to say it the way. So I'm trying. I'm sorry. I'm going to spend the next 2 weeks wandering the capitals of Europe just saying Budo.
Budo, rocking every. All right, Budo at the Cardinals. That's what we'll go with. And then I think any of these 3 is okay. Maeda at the Guardians, Logan Allen against the Tigers, and Patrick Sandoval at the Pirates.
Yeah, I could see Miles Michaelis against the Mets as well. I don't love any of those 4, though.
On Wednesday, you could go with Jose Soriano at the Pirates. There's Reese Olson at the Guardians.
Yeah.
Martin Perez against the Angels lineup right now is just there's nothing. Gavin Stone at home against the Marlins.
Yep.
And Chris Paddock against the Mariners. So I threw 5 names out there. Chris, who are your 3 favorites?
Olson is number 1 for sure. And then if I'm streaming, I think it's Gavin Stone and Martin Perez. I really want to keep a close eye on Chris Paddock. The Mariners have been a pretty streamable matchup so far this season. And we talked about it yesterday, but Paddock threw his slider more than he ever had in his most recent start. And it was an effective pitch for him. So that's an interesting aspect that I want to keep an eye on, even if I'm not necessarily starting him outside of head-to-head points leagues where he is RP eligible.
Let's wrap things up. Team name Tuesday. And this first one's from Forrest. Albies Forever Young.
Sure. Yeah.
From David, Juan Soto shot first.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that one.
I do it all for the Mookie.
Yep.
From Ryan, Wits in the box.
That's a good one, yeah.
Harris and the Henderson.
Sure.
Kirby Your Enthusiasm.
I like that one.
Harris Bueller's Day Off.
Sure.
Yolo Dolo or Yoladolo.
Yeah.
It ain't Ober till it's Ober.
Is that Lenny Kravitz? Is that what we're going with there? I'm disappointed you didn't include the one we got today.
Which one was that?
The one you sent me.
Oh, he said those are for your eyes only. I didn't know if there was something explicit I could read.
No, I don't think it was necessarily explicit. I think he just wanted to make sure we saw it.
Oh, all right. Well, I could pull them up. I still have the email. We'll wrap up with that. Let me just get through these and I'll pull up the email. From Ken, Colonel Zanders.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like big bets and I cannot lie.
Sure.
For Freddie and the bets.
Yep.
From Sean, Mom's Spaghetti. SP
Sure.
Arraghetti.
Yeah.
It's funny because my points league podcast points league team name is Mom's Arraghetti. But maybe,
I like it.
Is it better with the SP in the front? I don't know. Mom's
no, I think it works better without it.
Yep. And from Tyler, you're gonna pro far, kid.
I like that one.
That's a good one. All right, let me see. I sent it to you earlier, and
I think there's one that you probably don't want to say.
all right,
The
well,
fifth one down.
if you have the email open, you could just read them then.
Yeah. These are all I think you should leave team names for Chris only from Jason. Bogart's dubbed over. Yeah, Bozo dubbed over. Obviously, we all know that one. The Dangerous Knights Cruise. Dane Flashes. The patterns on those shirts are crazy. Joey Bart Harley Jarvis.
I actually
the most aggressive baby I've ever seen.
I actually understand that one.
The baby of the year is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. The Jones Are Their Money. A great one. And then calicocutLance.com. You got to give or else it goes dark. What a crop.
There you go. And those again were from Jason. So shout out to him. We're going to wrap there for Chris. Enjoy your trip, buddy. We'll miss you while you're gone. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.